rather you reach for grace sometimes when you can't get to gratitude, because it's in the
Hmm.
grace that you give yourself space to surrender. It's in the grace that you give yourself space to say, even though I'm trying to identify these things of gratitude, I'm still not feeling good. That's okay. And so grace says that you get to pause, you get to rest, you get to be angry, right? You get to, like, in all the things I'm grateful for, I'm still pissed off. I'm still not happy. I'm still challenged. And all the things that are happening, right? In terms, like, even if my crisis is not as big as this, it still feels pretty bad. Grace says that is okay. And you get to rest and you get to be honored for where you are in that moment. So sometimes, like, we have all these tools, reframe, what's your gratitude list? But in reality, it doesn't always work. And then we feel bad that it doesn't work because we feel like we're doing something wrong and we're not. So I always tell people, call in grace when you can't get to that gratitude.
If you want to make more sales without the pressure to post on social media, I made this podcast specifically for you. I'm Leslie Stevens, and this is the Not an Influencer, an Impact Maker podcast, where we talk about other organic marketing strategies to bring more clients into your online business and the stories of the incredible entrepreneurs who are using these strategies in their businesses every day to create success. You do not have to be an influencer to be an impact maker and build a successful online business. You are going to love this today. We have Aché with us. Can you tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
Absolutely. I have, like, the honor and the privilege of working with dynamic women leaders from around the world. And most of my clients are either leading really powerful missions on the ground or breaking into new presidential administrations in foreign countries, um, or leading their families. And so I really work with leaders in all things like business, but I started drilling down around really looking at leading wellness, leadership wellness, and leadership resilience, and not in the traditional way, because I started seeing a lot of my leaders masking depression, masking angst, masking anxiousness, with this whole attention just to go ahead and push through it and lead through it in a very, unfortunately, unhealthy way. So that's become my mission now, is to really create a space and a zone where leaders who are always on the front line, who are always on the on the front line, digging in, and to have them have a space to lean back and to pause and reflect.
That's so amazing because it's so important. And I'm so glad that you're bringing it to the forefront because there are so many people out there who do that exact same thing and they kind of just try and tough it out. They're like,
Yes.
I am here to show up and lead other people. So that's what I need to do. I need to keep showing up. And then their well being kind of starts to fall by the wayside and they can't show up to their full potential unless they can be at their full potential. So I love what you are doing. How did you get started working with these incredible people?
Oh my goodness. I fell into it. I work a lot in Brazil, and it was connected to some powerful women that were advocating for women and children's rights, to the point where some of them actually had to go in hiding. They were disrupting the law so much and disrupting the policies so much that literally their lives were at stake. And so when you're in a part of leading through a crisis and leading through a change and leading through movement and you have family, the question becomes, how do I lead effectively? How do I lead impactfully, even when my well-being literally, not just figuratively, but literally is at stake? So I got started there. I was just so inspired by it. Um, and some of my leaders actually, they meet a lot of violence in some cases. And some of my leaders, they're just there in the corporate room and they're still dealing with a lot of harm in that area too. And so one of my leaders, I remember distinctively, I came in, I told her, I got really clear, like, I'm working with a group of women who are masking and hiding behind oppression. And what had triggered it was that there was a powerful leader who on one Friday afternoon was leading really great policy change. And there was a victory that had just happened. And on Friday afternoon, she says, now you go home, you take care of yourselves, you rest, you hydrate, and you nourish. Because remember, you got to put yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
That evening, she ended up in ER. That Saturday morning, she was admitted. And by Sunday, she had passed. And she left two children under the ages of 6 behind. And while she was so busy making sure that she lifted up others, she forgot to lift up herself. And that just hit me really hard. And from that
Mm-hmm.
day, it just really became a true mission of mine.
Yeah, that I I can't even believe that. And I've watched people do the same thing. It's like they just keep going and going, and they can even say the words, and they can say, "Oh, I'm going to do this to take
Yes,
care of myself. I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to rest after I get this done." And the
yes,
true rest never happens.
it doesn't.
And it does come back, and it's hard to watch that.
Yes,
And I love that that allowed you to step in and be like, no, no, I'm not going to let this happen again. As long as I have the knowledge that I have and I can make an impact and I can make a change, I'm going to position myself to do that. And that is one bold move that you made, especially working with incredibly powerful women like you do. So how did you really gain that confidence to be like, you know what, this is what I'm going to go do. I'm going to go out and do this and help these women.
I didn't have the confidence. When that incident happened and that person passed, I was sad, I was upset. And then I started talking over with some of my friends who are also leaders and really getting behind, like, let's dig in. Let's lift up this hood. Let's get underneath. Like, talk to me for real. So I started first within my circle. That leader who I talked about, and I went to, this is a person, she's well known, and I had this conversation like, I want to start this group with women leaders and I want to talk about this. And at that point, I was like, I'm really going to be that chief resilient officer and really dig in. And she's like, I think that's great, et cetera, et cetera. What was really timing for me was that in that moment, she presented really well. She's like, I think that's a great idea, Aché. I will back you. I'll be your advisor. By the time I got home, she had sent this really in-depth email and she said, I'm actually one of your clients. And I wouldn't have known that because she presented well, she said the right things, her facial expressions was emoting like it
Mm-hmm.
should. And she said, I'm suffering with depression. She goes, it takes me so long, like on the weekends, for me to come back on Monday morning and go back into this corporate world. It takes so much of my energy. And in that moment, I knew I was onto something. And I knew then I had to continue to dig in around that because we're really good at talking about wellness. We're really good about talking about resilience. We're really good about coaching others around it. And we're really good about watching others go through a crisis and then offering our support. But when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to ourselves and we're leading through something, first of all, the question even becomes, am I even really going through a crisis? Right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's like, maybe my crisis isn't really crisis enough. As though we need to compare it because there's so much going on in the world and so over there is going through something as well. And so I don't really think my crisis is really crisis enough. And so
Mm-hmm.
that in itself just stops us. And then we just kind of move that to the side and we continue to what? We continue to push ahead because we celebrate that in our culture. We celebrate pushing ahead. We celebrate getting through it. We celebrate, I brought on not too long ago Dr. Melanie Turbilon. She coined the term cultural humility. She's a phenomenal person. And we talk about cultural humility a lot, but she's the one that coined it. And one of the things she talked about being that lifelong learner. But what we have to disband is this whole image of being the expert. Because come on, who doesn't value an expert in our world? We have to be the experts. We have to be on. We have to be before it. We got to be behind it. And that is not in alignment with wellness. It's just not. And so, how do I make sure that I stand in alignment with my values and my principles? I am the first line, let's just say, in my community or my family or my organization. But you know what? I'm going through something. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
through a miscarriage. I'm going through a divorce. I'm going through a death. I'm going through whatever that is. How do I make sure that I put myself first so that I can continue to lead effectively? And that really becomes the question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's such an important question because no one's slowing down enough to even ask.
Yeah.
It's like we keep ourselves so busy and so wrapped up in other people and helping other people, especially as women. We're very nurturing and caring, and how can we show up for
Yes.
others? And it's this instinct. And then we have these moments where we're like, you know what, maybe I am not okay, but I don't really know how to reach out, or if it's worthy enough, to reach out and actually get support or get help with this. So how do you support women to get to the point where they're willing to open up and write that email and be like, you know what, I am a leader, I can be strong, but I can still ask for support?
Hmm. Hmm. One of the first things I encourage individuals to do is even admit to yourself that, you know what, I'm having a difficult time. I don't have to be on all the time. And this is something I struggled with, right? Because honestly, let me just be clear, my 100% is probably someone else's 500%. So even when I go down to 50, I'm still batting out the park. I mean, just right. And that's like for a lot of us. But we have to just be willing to just like pause. So in the stillness is the movement. And I know that feels so counterintuitive, right? When we talk about that bullseye, that arrow, like in order to really get that speed to hit on that bullseye, right? We got to pull back that arrow, right? So it
Hmm.
can land directly on that point. But to step back feels so counterintuitive. But when we think of it in that term, it's like that's where we gain our speed, that's where we gain our target. That's where we gain our strength. And so, oftentimes, this is what I found one of the things that a lot of my leaders rush to do is we always feel like you need to reframe it. Like, how do you reframe this so that this works for you? How do you reframe this so that this makes sense? And it is a great thing. However, if you are a leader and you're obviously pushing through, you often rush to reframe too quickly. And we do that because we want to make sense of it. We want to feel comfortable about it. We want to understand it, right? Like when we're in something that we don't understand, it doesn't feel comfortable. And yet I tell individuals, I want you to sit in it. I don't want you to rush to reframe just yet. I want you just to pause and sit in it because honestly, we're using that ability and that action to reframe as a way to distract and then to move on too quickly. And so I'm not even worried about right now, like you reaching out to others. Right now, this is our internal conversation. What is the conversation you're having with yourself? What is the dialogue you're having with yourself? This is all before you can even reach out to someone. So I'm like, one, don't rush to reframe. It's okay to sit in it. It's okay to not understand why this happened to me or, what's the reason this has happened to me. It's okay to sit in my anger or my angst or my worry. As leaders, we feel like we need to know the answers right away, and that's not what it is. We know that as leaders, we're true learners. So, how do we just sit, be quiet, and be still? And so, that is often the number one challenge right there.
Oh, yeah. That internal dialogue can be like a huge game changer. And even when you were speaking, I was like, oh my gosh, I am the queen of trying to reframe things to understand. But even last week, my dog had passed away.
Mm,
And usually it is in my instincts to bury myself in work and try and just avoid it.
mhm,
Try and not think about it. And if it's long enough away, then I'll be
mhm,
okay. I just got to keep going, keep showing up, tough it
mhm,
out kind of thing. And I
mhm.
decided to take last week off.
Ooh, yes,
And
yes.
I took that step back. And
Go
I
ahead,
can't
Leslie.
tell you, from somebody who used to be a push through things, tough it out, don't ask for help, you're always okay, you'll make it through this thing. From somebody who has done that and decided to change her mind
Mm,
and feel the feelings
mhm,
and allow the emotion and
mhm,
let it run its course and process
mhm,
life,
mhm.
I have never felt better. Like just a week later, allowing myself to process those things, I feel like I show up better now for my
Come on.
family. I'm more present. I'm
Yes,
more efficient. I'm more
yes,
effective. All of these things where I thought I would have done that before because I was trying to keep myself so busy and not think about the pain and the loss and
yes.
all of those things. And it really is like stepping back so you can go forward. And I also feel like we can talk about this all day, like you
Oh
said
my
before. We
gosh,
can
it
talk
is.
about
It's so good.
wellness and all of that all day. But until you do it, it's like you've got to prove it to yourself. And I had a lot of internal dialogue going on, being like, okay, this just happened. Should I keep all my calls for the day, or should I just
Yeah,
cancel the whole day, or should I cancel
yeah,
the whole week? And I was like, that shouldn't even be like, people understand loss and other people will understand. And even if they don't understand, you know what, this moment is for me to step back and process
exactly.
this point in my life. And that was very challenging for me to get to
Yes.
this point.
Mm, mm,
But that allowance, I feel like we need to allow ourselves more feeling.
exactly. Exactly. There's a saying that says that when you hit pause on a machine, it stops. But when you hit pause on our humanity and our humans, we actually go. And that is so true. When we hit pause, we're able to move forward. You also said something really powerful, like I changed my mind. We forget the power of changing our mind, especially if you want to look consistent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Reliable. Like I can't change my mind. I have to go through. No, you get to change your mind. There's
Mm-hmm.
just even that simple thing is a powerful
Yeah.
action.
And you have that power. You get to decide your thoughts. And I think that's something we also get caught up in is like, oh, we've just
Mm-hmm.
thought this for the longest time. This
Mm-hmm.
is just the way I function. This is just the
Mm-hmm.
way we do things and my
Mm-hmm.
thought pattern, how I go about it. If you aren't happy, if things aren't working out, if you are masking, you get to decide, hey, I'm going to challenge that thought.
Absolutely.
Hey, what if I do something different? Thank you for
Absolutely.
keeping me where I'm at, brain,
Exactly.
but I want to go somewhere different now. And
And I
just
get to do
knowing,
it.
yeah, knowing you have that power.
Hmm. Or let's even say you have the right and responsibility.
Oh,
Like you have the right and responsibility to do that. And that's
absolutely.
truly how we lead, right? Our leadership is agile. Our leadership is not going forward, right, in a linear sense. Leadership is never linear. As much as we love that, we love the one, two, threes and the ABCs, but that's not how leadership works. It's
Mm-mm.
not. Whether we're leading ourselves or leading our family, we know it is all over the place. And that truly is the journey of it. And so, as you said, we get to ask, are these beliefs really my beliefs? Right? Are
Mm-hmm.
these thoughts really my thoughts? And that's why I'm like, you don't rush to reframe, sit with it. I love that you took time off. I too lost my furry loved one a few months ago. And so I totally get that. Um, and the other thing that we do, and this is where we talk about, again, you were like, what do we, how do we reach out to others? I'm really like, let's first internally look at what we need to do. Um, Even for myself, sometimes when I'm in a funk or something stressful is going on, there's a tendency to rush to reframe. And then also let me get gratitude. Let me find all the things I can be grateful for. And I'm not saying we know that gratefulness and acknowledging certain things, it actually does changes in our brain. We know this. But
Mm-hmm.
let's also be clear, it's sometimes hard to just be in that state of gratitude. It is sometimes hard to, even when you find something to be grateful about, you might even feel bad, like, okay, that didn't help. Still don't feel good. And so I always tell people that sometimes it's not about being grateful all the time. Like, not that you, but I'd rather you reach for grace sometimes when you can't get to gratitude, because it's in the
Mm-hmm.
grace that you give yourself space to surrender. It's in the grace that you give yourself space to say, even though I'm trying to identify these things of gratitude, I'm still not feeling good. That's okay. And so grace says that you get to pause, you get to rest, you get to be angry, right? You get to, like, in all the things I'm grateful for, I'm still pissed off. I'm still not happy. I'm still challenged. And all the things that are happening, right? In terms, like, even if my crisis is not as big as this, it still feels pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
Grace says that is okay. And you get to rest and you get to be honored for where you are in that moment. So sometimes, like, we have all these tools, reframe, what's your gratitude list? But in reality, it doesn't always work. And then we feel bad that it doesn't work because we feel like we're doing something wrong, and we're not. So I always tell people, call in grace when you can't get to that gratitude.
Mm-hmm. Oh, That is beautiful because I've been in those moments where I'm like, my gratitude list is so long and I'm still upset about something.
Yeah,
And that grace is where everything can change. You can get to that kind of like point of peace where you're not forcing something because we have
yeah,
these tools. We want the result from the tool that we have. We're great at using tools, but like you said, sometimes it just does not work like that, and that is okay. So when you were building this business, did you approach anything that you kind of weren't expecting, and then you had to allow yourself that grace to kind of
mm,
move through it?
yes, yes, of course. I mean, when you talk about leading through a crisis, right? Or I say the SHI that leaders go through, and you're wanting to have that stability, right? You yearn to have that stability. You yearn to have, what that day-to-day grind was, even if it was a grind, because when something comes and completely disrupts and dismantles everything, that the whole world around you looks completely unknown, right? And then you find yourself with some angst, anxiousness and fear and isolation, all of these things. The question becomes, how do I lead through this? How do I get to the next point? When you feel like your breakdown is having a breakdown, right? How do I continue on forward? And I've been there and I've done that. And having been a leader, also leading an organization or consulting with leaders. And that's when I really started doubling down on this resilience and really recognizing it as a journey. I know we just toss that word around, and I even sometimes hesitate to use it because we use it as something like it's an outcome or it's something that we're strong about. But I really always say resilience is that journey. And there are going to be times we're in the valley. There are going to be times where we're on our knees. There are going to be times we're in that fetal position. And we're going to be times where we're not. And what I find that resilience more so is not about our ability or my ability to be able to get up. What I learned in my own experience is about collective resilience. That when I have collective resilience, I don't have to rely on my own resilience. Let's see, I might call you. I might
Hmm.
reach, or you might reach out to me, right? And now we now have this collective resilience where maybe now I'm leaning into your resilience. It doesn't make it any less powerful. As a matter of fact, it makes it more powerful. And so it's looking at things from this individualistic type of view and just broadening it out so that we're looking at it from a collective perspective. And that's really what I needed at that time. As a person who is, let me tell you, I am the go to. I can handle it on my own. I don't need anybody. I can get it done. Like singular, that's me, all about that.
Hmm.
But when I let that one person in and that journey of collective resilience, not only does it benefit me, but then, Leslie, it also benefits you as well. And then there is something that is so powerful that grows from that. And so, in leading through the crises, I realized the value of that as well. I realized one, like I said, going back and just really refraining, like looking at how I was doing certain things. And then also realizing that I did not really, like for real, Ashe. Like I teach this, but when it comes to me, it's like, okay, so you are having a crisis. It's not about whether it's a crisis enough. You are going through something. It doesn't make you less powerful. It doesn't make you less competent. It doesn't make you less impactful. And then to be able to sit in that and be okay. And it's hard. I'm not going to say it's
Hmm.
not hard. It's not, I'm not going to say, and if we're good at making sure others take care of themselves, right? And we actually even feel good about that, right? We even
Oh
feel
yeah.
good about that. But when it comes to ourselves, there still is a question of, does this mean I'm not strong enough because I wasn't able to go through this without taking time off? Does this mean that I wasn't smart enough because I wasn't able to do this on my own? I had to call somebody. Like, let's be really clear. We still have those voices as much as we might perform and mask that we don't. And that's where my work comes in. I'm like, let's pull up these second crop thoughts. Let's go ahead and pull these up and get rid of those weeds because
Hmm.
that is truly holding back our leadership.
Yeah. I just had this thought while you were talking, just thinking about how much stronger and how like just like our potential could skyrocket if we just stepped out and allowed
Yes.
ourselves that collective of everything, that
Yes.
collective resilience, that collective just just allowance of feelings, because
Yes.
when you allow yourself to go through that process and you bring others in and support others, that's opening up so many doors. And
Yes.
it's just like just the allowance, getting rid of those thoughts, opening them up, like the possibilities are endless, and we can become so much stronger. I think we are genuinely afraid that we're not strong enough if we can't
But,
do it on our own, but we're
mm-hmm,
so much stronger together. It's
mm-hmm,
way easier to carry that
mm-hmm,
couch when there are
mm-hmm,
two of you
mm-hmm,
instead of one of you.
mm-hmm,
You can
mm-hmm,
move things so much faster together, and
mm-hmm.
we don't need to do things on our own. That's another assumption, that we have so much in business specifically that we need to do everything on our own. And you really don't have to. Just
You
having that
don't.
person next to you being like, hey, you're having a hard moment. You can still do this.
Yes.
Or things aren't working
Yes.
out perfect. That's okay. You still got
Yeah.
this. That doesn't
Yeah.
that doesn't mean you failed. That doesn't just means you're having a hard moment. Like
Yeah.
having people in support and community and all of those things just makes you stronger.
It does. And Leslie, you have to use your community. I think that we're okay being part of the community, and we love joining a community, and we even love to be in service to others. But then we draw a line when it means that we're also drawing from that community, right?
Hmm.
There's still this unspoken element about I'm going to be in this, I'm going to be in collection or collective with my girls and my women, and we're going to, but I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to anyone struggling. I'm not going to talk about the divorce that's happening. I'm not going to talk about this challenge I'm having over here. Not too much anyway, right? Because there's still this celebration that we have of the single story of the hero or the heroine. Like there's still that single story that we celebrate. We see it in the movies, we see it on television, and until we talk about challenging, but our actions really have to be the ones that challenge that. And so somehow by me being collective made me that I wasn't strong enough to do it on my own because see that single story of that shiro is now it's gone. And we need to really reframe that. And that's what I'm
Hmm.
seeing when I see a lot of like right now, what we know right now today is that a lot of leaders are suffering from depression and anxiety and angst today. And these are
Hmm.
individuals that are leading multi-million dollar corporations. They're also leading, their families, and they don't talk about it because they're embarrassed and they're ashamed of it as well.
Hmm.
And so that's why I'm talking about the wellness of our leadership. We have to.
Oh, it's so important. And you brought up so many incredibly powerful points and brought up things that more people honestly need to talk about. And we can talk about it together.
Yes.
So, Aché, how can people find you to connect with you, have a conversation with you, or potentially work with you?
Oh, yes. So you can reach me at achelytle.com. ACHE. I know it looks like egg, but it's Aché. ACHELYTLE.com. And I will always send you the links as well, like to my Instagram. But that is the best way to ping me, connect with me. And anyway, just reach out to me. I love to hear from individuals. I love to hear individuals' stories and also their wins and their challenges.
Oh, amazing. Yes, all those links are below in the description. Reach out to her, connect with her, have a conversation. She is just an absolute joy to talk to. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Leslie, thank you for hanging out with me. I so appreciate it. It's been great to be here. Thank you.